Welcome to the next video. In this video, I want to show you the most important things about the PEP8 guideline. I have put some important links here in the materials.markdown file, which I uploaded in the GitHub repository. And the first link is the PEP8 guideline overall, which is a pretty long document. So you can read through it for yourself after this video. But in this video, I want to go into detail about the most important sub-chapters of this PEP8 guideline. And as a note, this PEP8 guideline is a style guide for Python. It's just about style and conventions. It's not about that the Python code is running or not running. It's just about the readability of your code. So I will start with the first important chapter, which is imports. And as you might know, there are several different categories of imports, which are stated here. For example, we have the standard library imports, which are the packages that are built in the standard library of your Python version. Then we have third-party imports. And we would have first-party imports. So, and the PEP8 guideline would state that you should order by these three different types. So at first, you should have only the standard library import. Then you should do a line break. And after this, you would list all the third-party imports like NumPy, Pandas, TensorFlow, and so on. And at third, you would list the first-party imports. And a further recommendation of mine is to just use one import in one line. Because if you use several imports in a line, it's not easy to see later on if you changed something in the line, what exactly changed. Okay, then we can go to the next part, to the indentation. As you might know, the default case is 4 spaces per indentation, which is in the most editors set by the tab. So one tab is mostly used as 4 spaces. In some third-party packages, for example, the packages of Google, they use 2 spaces per indentation, which is, in my opinion, harder to read than using 4 spaces. So I would recommend to use 4 spaces, but if you want to collaborate for these projects, you should align to their coding guidelines. So this PEP8 coding guideline here is the overall coding guideline. Some projects might differ a bit in the style guidelines. So for example, the Google style guide for Python differs a bit. And then here are some examples of aligning arguments of a function call or parameters of a function definition, how to align these. And the most important thing is that the first character of each variable in a line should be on the same column. So we have here a function call with 4 arguments, a variable 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if we want to do a line break after variable 2, so that we have variables 3 and 4 in the next line, we should at least align the first character of the variable 3 on the same column as the first character of the variable 1, so that we can more easily see where our arguments in this case here are. Also, this holds for function definitions. So if you want to do a line break of the parameters here, the first character of each parameter in a new line should be on the same column. So you can just read on after this video. Here are some more examples also for lists, for example. Okay, then we can move on to the next point, which is comments. And comments, the most used way is that when we have a comment in one code line, for example, this. Go back to my example file. This wouldn't be compliant to PEP8 because the go-to way is to use 2 white spaces after the line and then to add the comment. So we have just to add 2 white spaces to easier separate the comment from the code line itself. Most times I'm a fan of just adding the comment above the code line. This is especially practical or useful if your comment is a bit longer. So if your comment is a bit longer, you can add some more characters here, At some point, the whole line is harder to read, and I would just suggest, if your comments are a bit longer, you should add them one line before. And here, the starting hashtag should be on the same column as the next line's first column, which is here the first column, but if it's already indented, you should indent the comment also. Okay. Then we can go on to the naming conventions, which is very, very important. And there are different naming styles in programming languages. I will now show you the most important naming conventions in Python. At first, we have the lowercase with underscores, which is used for variables, functions, and most times also methods. If we have a variable that has a constant value, even though there is no real constant keyword in Python, but if we want to indicate a variable has a constant value, we would write the variable name with uppercase with underscores. So whenever you see a variable with uppercase and underscores, it indicates that it's a constant variable, even though I know there is not a constant keyword in Python, or there is just no constant in Python, but it's just to indicate it. All other variables that can be changed, and for class names, own exceptions, and for example, own types, the most used way to name these is the capitalized words, sometimes also called camel case, where the first character of each word is written in uppercase and all the other characters of the word are written in lowercase. So it's here also kind of easy to distinguish where one word starts and one word ends. And this is used, for example, as I said, for classes and own exceptions, own types, etc. So if you scroll down a bit, you will see also some examples here. Class names should normally use the cap words convention. Variable names also, exception names also, and function and variable names should be used lowercase with underscores. So between each word, if I scroll up a bit again, between each word there's a lowercase, since we cannot use white spaces in variable names and also not in class names, etc. So we have to separate the words that it's easy to read for the programmer. Also, your names should be descriptive, so the variable name should describe what this variable will store. Do not use any cryptic single letter variables like calling a variable A or B in the productive Python code. If you have a little Python example with 10 or 20 code lines, it might be okay, but in a productive Python code base, you shouldn't use single case letters for variables and for classes and so on. Okay, so you can read here a bit more about these naming conventions. Just remember to use lowercase or snake case, how it's mostly called, for variables, methods, and functions. Uppercase with underscores for constant variables, and this camel case for own class types or types in general. Okay. Then as the last part, programming recommendations, which is stated here at the end of the PEP8 guideline, which shows how to align, for example, or how to use the negation, or in general the logic operators, that the line is easy to read. So the correct example would be, if foo is not none, and as you can see, this code line is read as a sentence, so not really as a cryptic code. So it's easy to see what this line should check. The wrong way would be if not foo is none. This is a valid Python code, but it's not as easy to see what this line should check for. So you should always ask yourself, if you write a Python code, is this Python code understandable for other programmers? And will I remember the meaning of this Python code in 2 months, for example? So at the moment, when I write the code, I mostly will understand the code. But in 2 months, maybe I forgot what the heck I wanted to do here. So you should always ask yourself, is this code understandable? Also, another remark for comments. If you think you should add a lot of comments to your Python code, you should rather ask yourself, is my Python code itself maybe not very easy understandable? So if you have to add a lot of comments, you should rather update your Python code itself and not add a lot of comments, because the Python code is not very understandable. And you should rather update your Python code that it is easier understandable. Okay, so this is a PEP8 guideline. As I said, it's just for the style guidelines. It's not about the Python code is working or it's not working. You just have to ask yourself, which of these recommendations here in the PEP8 guideline will I use in the future, and you should stick to them. So if you start a new Python project, at the beginning you should ask yourself, what is the style that I want to use in the code base? And you should ask yourself this question before starting with the coding, because if you want to change the style guide afterwards, it's a lot of refactoring and it just costs a lot of time. So you should stick to your Python style guide in a project. Yeah, you have to be consistent with your Python style. That is the most important part. And you do not have to address all of these parts of the PEP8 guideline. Yeah, you can just pick the most important parts and modify some parts of it for your Python project. That would be also okay. Okay, so this was the first introduction video to the PEP8 guidelines, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.